I was just about to tell you something, but I lost it. Forgetting can be the worst, but understanding it might be the key to understanding memory. Researchers are working every day to make dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and memory loss a problem of the past. Hi, I'm Trace Dominguez, and welcome to Research Detectives. These researchers are finding lost memory. This is not the classic story, though. We're going to talk to researchers who are out here really making a difference. We'll show you how scientists are moving forward in their search for treatments and a cure, and get a better understanding of their work. That's all on this episode of Research Detectives. Dementia is like an umbrella. It's a broad term for a whole host of brain diseases that affect the way we remember things, the way we think, even the way we move. 6 million Americans have been diagnosed with one of these dementia diseases. Alzheimer's is just one of them. And that diagnosis can be scary for the patient, but also their families. Luckily for everyone, research is ongoing, and here we're going to meet some researchers who are looking at these diseases in a different and exciting way. The Wertheim UF Scripps Institute is a big name with big goals and big ambitions. We're here to meet Dr. Ronald Davis. He's the principal investigator leading a team of scientists working together to crack the mystery of missing memory. Okay, let's talk big picture here. What are y'all trying to accomplish in this lab?
Well, in this lab we're trying to do two things. One is right now the focus, basic neuroscience, is focus on how does the brain forget? What are the mechanisms that the brain uses to forget? That's one major goal of the lab. And the other is to design new drugs or come up with new drugs and find new drugs that really can delay the onset or protect from the negative effects of Alzheimer's disease and ALS, motor neuron disease. So the lab has two major points of emphasis right now.
How does memory loss actually happen in the brain?
Neurons change physiologically and metabolically and in function, and then they change back during forgetting. Neurodegeneration is the end stage when something triggers the cells to die, and there the memories are gone forever.
Yeah, and almost like a hard drive, you know, that you can run a magnet over it and it'll still be a hard drive. It can store new data, but if you take a screwdriver to it, nothing's going to be encoded there.
Perfect analogy.
What's the process like that goes from forgetting somebody's name to forgetting who that person is?
Names, people struggle with names because they have no inherent meaning themselves. And there's something in psychology, experimental psychology, called the Baker-Baker paradox. And you say, oh, this man's Jim Baker. The name is meaningless. But if you say, oh, Jim is a baker, you immediately think of, well, there's a man with a baker's hat. And so you have something to associate the name with. And so names they don't have really an inherent meaning that allow you to associate with something that's important. So that's easy. We all forget names. What's your name, by the way? At late stage Alzheimer's, if somebody's name, and this happens in Alzheimer's where people are unable to recognize their spouse or their children, that has to be where many neurons that have encoded the familiarity or the recognition of people, they've died. And so they're no longer there. And so the person really changes from one personality to another personality, unfortunately.
What's your most recent clue? Like, what are you finding now?
We've recently discovered what's called transient forgetting, and was the next step. Because a lot of us, every one of us, I mean, I don't know, I walk out of my office on a daily basis intent, I have a mission, a purpose, and somebody stops me, or I have a thought, and I talk to somebody, and then you stand there and you say, what in the heck was I just doing? Where was I going and why? And you walk back in your office or wherever you're going, and then 5 minutes later it pops back in your head. Yeah, I was doing this, and so you go accomplish your task. So that's transient forgetting. It's really a block in retrieval. It's not a permanent effect, but it's a block in your ability to retrieve that information that you want. There are several different hypotheses for what causes Alzheimer's, sporadic form of Alzheimer's disease and ALS. And one that resonates to us is mitochondria become dysfunctional.
Most people might not remember the word mitochondria from high school biology. What is it? It's known as the powerhouse of the cell. You're looking at a microscopic image of mitochondria, magnified 60 times.
Mitochondria, they move throughout neurons to where energy is needed because they're moving power plants. Turns out mitochondria become defective with age. So slowly, in all of us, our mitochondria are less potent in doing what they need to do to keep the neuron happy and healthy as we go through decades of life. So the mitochondrial hypothesis for sporadic Alzheimer's, for example, envisions that because it is an age-dependent or age-related disease, Alzheimer's and ALS, really in later years, later decades, 50, 60, and 70, that mitochondria become somewhat compromised, and then there's some other precipitating event. Could be head trauma, could be a viral infection, could be some toxic substance that causes the mitochondria to undergo a precipitous loss of function. And so our goal has been to screen for and identify drugs that protect the mitochondria from this effect. We're very excited because we do have some compounds.
How many steps from the work we're doing here until we get something that we can use in humans and people?
After years of screening for and finding drugs, we've gotten to the point of testing some of the better drugs we have. We do have some that with one dose, the diseased neurons are staying alive, which is quite remarkable, and the mitochondria are being protected. So that's a big step in whittling down a series of drugs to ones that we want to go to the next step. But keep in mind, they're pure neurons in culture. Will it work in a human? We don't know yet. That's going to be something for the future.
Do you see yourself as a detective finding clues and solving mysteries?
Yeah, we do. So, if you're solving a murder, you have several different clues, and you have to explore all of those. In any given research project we have some new ideas or hypotheses, which is kind of like a clue, or we have some information we've gathered in the lab, we think this might be the case, or scientific literature. We take a broad picture, and those are also the clues that we chase down and try to find out which one is right. And sometimes none of them are right. We have to regroup, and it could be a cold case, so to speak. And then 10 years from now, maybe some new information will appear that basically says, this could be it, and you go down and you chase that hypothesis or that option down. So it's very much like being a detective.
Neuroscientist and researcher Dr. Sathya Puthanveettil is investigating how lost memories are stored.
So, doctor, as simply as possible, what is it that you do?
My lab studies, how memories are formed and maintained, and what happens to those memories during aging, and in these cases such as Alzheimer's disease.
The brain is composed of cells called neurons and other cell types, and we are trying to understand how they talk to each other. We are trying to find ways of how they can talk better. Each of these neurons can potentially connect to 10,000 other neurons. So in principle, our brain has trillions of synaptic connections. So it's very difficult to study how memories are actually formed, to actually find the molecular basis of how memories are formed in our brain.
What's the most surprising thing about how memories change over time?
Something that has fascinated me about memory is that these wiring in the brain that get modified. So we study this formational memory by, do we find a change in the synaptic connections in response to a particular stimuli? So we then try to look deep inside the neurons and to see what proteins or what RNAs, those are the molecules that mediate some of these processes, they get modified, and try to identify those RNAs and proteins that become modified. So we do these kind of experiments in a temporal manner, just by really looking at this number of genes, by sequencing, or looking at these proteins, and by imaging, by using sophisticated microscopes. And the molecular models are very fascinating. Can you imagine, like we can walk around, right? Like these proteins can move in the cell in a directional manner.
How is it that memory loss happens?
In our 86 billion neurons what we have, like we see, we learn, we smile, we're having good time, these motors are actually moving along those tracks, carrying things to the proper place so that a decision could be made. And if there is any impairments or a deficiencies of some materials that need to be shipped, there will be an impaired communication between the neurons. That we have shown that over and over again.
What drew you to this? How did you get into studying neuroscience?
My mom's mom, she passed away because of Alzheimer's disease in '91, and my dad's mom is my grandma. She was completely, she could remember each and everything since from the childhood. You can see these kind of very different experience. So that, I think it's very personal.
The more people we talk to, the more people have these
personal
connections.
Yeah, very personal, yeah.
Hundreds of miles across the state in Gainesville at the University of Florida, more investigative research is ongoing. Dr. David Nelson leads the entire organization.
Dementia, elephant in the room. It's a big disease affecting millions of people worldwide. How are we going to solve that problem? How are we going to suss out the answer to this mystery?
Dementia is a great detective story. Dementia is many things, right? We now know hypertension, diabetes, kind of too little blood flow to the brain can cause a type of dementia. There are dementias related to different neurologic diseases in the brain, neurodegenerative diseases, Parkinson's. Then there's the ALS, the Lou Gehrig's type disease. And then there's the one that we're almost terrified of, I'll call it the cognitive aging, memory deficits that would bring in Alzheimer's. And so each one of those, as you can tell, is a different pathway. It's caused by a different process and pathway, and is going to require different interventions.
You mentioned that diet, health, lifestyle changes affect dementia. That's not typically part of the conversation, is it?
If we live healthier, if we control blood pressure, control obesity, if we drink less alcohol, if we use the right antioxidants, you can prevent the severity and often delay the onset of disease. It's very similar to any other organ, heart, lungs. Don't smoke, don't drink, all the things your parents would have told you. They have a lot of sound scientific rationale as to why preserving good blood flow, the regeneration capacity of cells, good nutrition to help repair damage. Those all are scientifically being approached by different scientists now to enhance all those kind of repair mechanisms.
But it almost feels, and the conversation almost feels like, oh, it just happens to some people and it seems inevitable. Like if you were to tell someone, oh, well, if maybe you ate a little better, you exercised more, you changed your diet a little bit, you changed your lifestyle a little bit, you could dissuade your brain from going down that path.
My grandfather died of Alzheimer's. My uncle died at age 60 of early onset Alzheimer's. So our family has been very aware of this, has done genetic testing and the knowledge of understanding your risk.
Dr. Bhavana Patel treats patients and does research at the Fixell Institute for Neurological Diseases. This puts her in a really unique position to understand these diseases.
As a physician, I see a lot of people who come to me when they have changes in their brain, and it's my job to solve that puzzle. So the brain, I like to say, is like real estate. There's a part of your brain that controls a part of your body's function or brain's function. So your ability to see, your ability to smell, think, remember things, talk, read, write, all of it. And so if someone tells me they're having vision changes, I can understand what pathway could be impacted. If someone tells me they have problem remembering things that happened recently, that tells me a different area of the brain is affected.
There is a consensus among researchers that getting enough deep sleep may help reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease. According to a wide range of studies, during deep sleep, the brain appears to sort of clean itself, getting rid of two proteins associated with Alzheimer's. Neuroscientists say that there's a clear relationship between sleep and dementia, especially Alzheimer's disease.
What we do know right now is that there are ways to help people with dementia and their loved ones. There are brain health things that we can do to help their day-to-day life and provide the support to these individuals in this moment that they may need, or their families and friends may need, including, eating right, exercising, sleeping better, counseling them on smoking and alcohol. But additionally, there are some medications available that can help from a cognition standpoint, and they should also be aware of medications that should be avoided.
That is such good information. As the doctor just explained, research investigators say there are ways to help reduce your risk. One of those is by eating healthy. Focus on fruits and vegetables. Choose foods with lots of different colors, healthy fats, and lean proteins, and seafood. These are all good choices for good brain health. Be active every day and avoid smoking. It reduces oxygen to the brain, and as a result, it's a culprit in causing some cells to die. It's also important to manage alcohol intake. The Alzheimer's Association website has a list of FDA-approved medications that can help with mild cognitive impairment and the early stages of Alzheimer's. This is all very important practical information, but research detectives are investigating diseases to find answers. They're looking for treatments and cures, and they say that clinical studies are the best way to crack the case. You can get more information at alz.org/trialmatch. And one final piece of information: when it comes to medications, it's also important to develop a routine to take them, like at mealtime. And either the patient or the caregiver should keep medicines organized, and if needed, ready for the next day. In this family photo, Suri Veliz on the left is standing next to her dad. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 62. Suri, seen here with her daughters, was just 50 when one of those daughters became concerned. After she was diagnosed, right away, she started looking for studies. Research detectives say taking part in studies is the best way right now to find treatments and a cure.
I did a DNA test, and it came up saying that I had one variant in late Alzheimer's possibilities. And I went, I gotta jump on this and get it attacked right away as fast as possible. So I was looking for studies to get into, and I contacted the doctors that were attending to my dad, and they were like, "You're only 50, you're too young. There's no studies for you, you're too young." At 52, I actually found a study that would take me on. They put me through all the other testings and stuff. They started the medications on me and stuff, and I'm actually noticing a difference.
After the study, or now that you've been participating in the study, what have you noticed? What's changed?
I normally don't remember anything. You can give me your phone number now, and I walk out the door, I already forgot it. And I'm remembering little details, little things that you would think, it's no big deal. You forgot. But it is a big deal.
When Keith Gibson speaks on behalf of the Alzheimer's Association, he shares a very personal experience. He was the caregiver for his older brother, Ronnie, who passed away in 1991.
Being the caregiver was a great experience. It was the greatest gift that I could have given to my brother.
What is the goal of the Alzheimer's Association? What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, we're the leading global health organization in Alzheimer's care and support, and we're the largest nonprofit funder of Alzheimer's research. And so when we think about the two primary roles, that's it: care and support and Alzheimer's research. We want to accelerate Alzheimer's research through driving risk reduction, early detection, and just creating access to care and support.
Yeah, and when it says research, it's great that you mentioned research, because our show is titled Research Detectives.
Okay.
So we're trying to understand the clues on the road to finding, solving the mystery of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah, when it comes to research, like I said earlier, we're the largest nonprofit funder of Alzheimer's research. Right now, we are funding, we have $320 million in funding in effect for 1,000 projects in over 50 countries. So we're really working towards moving that needle very fast. At any given moment, Alzheimer's research is taking place all over the globe.
To find out more about the clinical trials happening now, visit the Alzheimer's Association website, alz.org/trial match.
What is it that you wish everyone knew about dementia?
The brain, in my opinion, and of course I have a very biased opinion, is the most important organ in the body. And it's susceptible to damage from everything else that we, may think about could damage our heart or liver or kidneys, right? So things like high blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes can also impact your brain. And so we have to treat those things not only from a heart health standpoint, but also from a brain health standpoint.
How far away are we from promising treatments for these conditions?
I think we still have a ways to go. My hope is that, we'll see some progress in my lifetime, whether it's something that can slow down the disease or even a cure. But I think it's important to keep in mind that we still have ways to manage dementias at this time. And I think getting the word out there of that and helping people find the right diagnosis and the means to find the right team of people to be involved in their care is something we could be doing today.
I really think that's interesting. You mentioned, a cure and then patients. And for me, that seems like it would be a straight line, but it's definitely more of a labyrinth, isn't it?
We have our scientists sitting at scripts developing some of the best new treatments in the world, but that has to fit into the right person at the right time, at the right age. That requires a lot of studies. We've got such targeted drugs. I have high blood pressure. It depends on my age, my race, my genetic background, my other healthcare concerns, my other medications. There's not one medicine for blood pressure, there's hundreds. And so it'll be the same eventually for dementia, Alzheimer's, it'll be precision medicine, trying to make sure we have the right drug for the right person at the right time. And the way you direct scientists towards a target is to encourage them through grants and society aligning around those missions. This should be a brain healthy state, and we've got a lot of research powerhouses here, and hopefully we can contribute at least to better understanding dementia, Alzheimer's, and then some new targets for treatment or eventually prevention.
So is that sort of what UF Health and Scripps are doing then, is to kind of put up launch these balloons to put up these targets and say, here, this is where we want you to to point?
And so I don't want to forget about the critical nature of public policy, public health, because the best treatments in the world are no good if people can't afford them, if they can't find them, and if they can't access them. Mm-hmm. So here we're really proud of having a school of public health and really making sure that we're not just talking about getting drugs into people, we're talking about communities, living healthy communities, and really trying to solve sometimes the biggest issues or what looked like to the public the simplest. We got a cure, we got millions of people who need it, but that requires good public policy and funding mechanisms and access and taking away inhibitions and biases against certain populations. So you can see it's very complicated, but it requires a big team to attack almost any disease from so many different angles. We have many such ambitious goals that we like to refer to as moonshot projects. We put our own funding behind it, and we give scientists a chance to, instead of applying for grants, just try to do something audacious and fun. And for them, as a detective, fun is curing some horrible disease, and dementia and Alzheimer's would be one.
What do you want to tell people whose family, friends, maybe themselves are suffering from these disorders?
I wish that we had something right now that we'd say, I wish I had a medicine that I could put in everyone's medicine cabinet. My father had the beginning of Alzheimer's, and his two uncles they died of end-stage Alzheimer's disease, and so genetically I have a higher risk state. If you have a first-degree relative, mother, father, brother, sister, with these diseases, you have a higher chance of getting Alzheimer's or ALS than anybody in the normal population. So I hope we could find something within my lifetime, but if not, we have to think of our kids and our grandkids. And certainly the work we do in the lab, I hope it will be of use, maybe not in my generation, but hopefully for my children and my grandchildren. and the children and grandchildren of everybody out there that suffers from these diseases.
I'm Trace Dominguez, and on this episode of Research Detectives, we learned so much about forgetting, memory, and the personal connection these scientists have with the research that they're doing. But next time, we're going to learn so much more about another mystery. So we'll see you then.